morning, the most news in the morning, period. Weekdays 6 Eastern.
Citigroup isn't the only financial institution who's dishing out big cash to put their name on stadiums. I mean, what, 9 financial institutions in all? Among them, Bank of America will pay $140 million to put their name on the Carolina Panthers Stadium. JP Morgan and Chase Company, $66 million to put their name on Chase Field in Phoenix. I mean, they probably would say this is a great advertising technique. What's your take?
Oh, it is great advertising, except for one thing. The American taxpayers have now invested heavily in these banks, and the bailout funds should not be used for this purpose. I mean, there's a bigger question here, Carol, and that is, how should bailout funds be used, or how should they not be used? And since we have a stimulus now that's not a bailout, that became necessary because the banks aren't lending money, then it seems to me that we have an obligation to look at all ways in which the banks are using these bailout funds, whether it's for advertising, marketing, putting their names on stadiums, executive salaries,
but
perks,
Congressman, you know what
options.
these institutions are saying? We're not using the bailout money to pay out for advertising.
Right.
We're using our own money.
Oh, and they couldn't use their own money for running their own business. They have to get the money from the taxpayers. The money's fungible. I mean, they can use tax dollars for that as well, and they know that. The fact of the matter is that the Treasury Department, which finally intervened and said that these executives were making too much money at the taxpayers' expense. The president said there ought to be a $500,000 limit. I imagine a lot of your viewers could live with that. But the fact of the matter is that there needs to be another reach in and say, look, stop this aggressive advertising. We own you, essentially, and we don't want you advertising. We want you to use the money to keep employees. At the same time they're defending this $400 million stadium naming deal, they lay off 50,000 people. Now, how many people could you employ for $400 million?
So what specifically,
go ahead.
What specifically are you going to do about this?
Well, I'm chairman of the Domestic Policy Subcommittee, which has jurisdiction over a broad range of policy in the United States. And what I'm going to do is start looking systematically at how bailout money is being spent or not spent, and let the taxpayers know whether their money is being used well. I mean, think about this. Banks are hoarding money. They aren't using it to help people keep in their homes. They're using it to buy other banks.
Congressman, are you going to hold hearings on this matter?
Absolutely. We're going to hold hearings. I'm announcing it right now. We are going to hold hearings on this, but I'm looking at the bigger picture, too. And, you know, it includes how they waste money on naming stadiums. But there's other areas, too, where the money's being wasted or not being spent in the way Congress intended.
When will the hearings begin?
This is something I have to work out with staff, but I think you could probably look to something happening within the next month. It takes a while to gather all the information and get documents. But, you know, the American taxpayers deserve a hearing on this, and they deserve to know that the money that they're giving to these banks, which is over $700 billion, is being watched carefully. There's a number of congressional committees that work on this. My committee has the ability to, if necessary, subpoena documents and require testimony under oath. And so we are going to do everything we can to get to the bottom of this, to stop the wasting of taxpayers' dollars, and to try to make sure that we play a role in getting this economy started again. But if you don't have the confidence of the public, if the banks and their spending policies have undermined public trust, then this is the reason why the public is even leery of a stimulus package.